So I grabbed coffee with Tina on Thursday, right before I left. And Tina said, she told me a little bit of her story growing up in an abusive home, saying, I never had any sort of self-worth. I actually believe that God loves me and can love myself. And she said this as tears of joy are streaming down her face. And then she said she wants to, in a couple years, pursue the diaconate in the Anglican Church. So what an incredible transformation from atheist to pursuing the diaconate. She also got confirmed recently, too. That was fun. She didn't know what that was. So God is on the move in small ways, but I wanted to give you a picture of kind of some bigger stats that you can't see, but I can. 77% of campuses across the U.S. don't have any kind of witnessing community on their campus. 77% of college campuses. And here's the thing, we think about big state universities, but we're talking about community colleges where most of the city goes now. There's been a shift towards community college. 77% according to every campus. Only 2% of students on campus are being reached for the gospel. Only 2% are being reached for the gospel on college campuses. So we have a lot of work to do. So some current things that are happening that I've seen so far, and again, I've only been on this job as convener for campus ministry for a little bit. So here's some things I'm seeing. I'm seeing organizations like CCO partner with Anglican churches to start parish-based campus ministries. And that's yielded a lot of great fruit.
What does CCO stand for?
CCO stands for the Coalition for Christian Outreach, but it's a campus ministry. They'll talk to you about their name sometime. Yeah, it's based in Pittsburgh, but it's actually expanding now. So it's not just in Pittsburgh. And I'll say more about that in a little bit. We're seeing some churches that are strategically planted by campuses that are having a really great impact. One would be Church of the Res in Wheaton, Illinois. I heard like a crazy statistic. I'm sure about my other statistics. This one's not true. But a crazy amount of Wheaton students are becoming Anglicans just because Church of the Res is right at their back door. And so,
those my neighbors at Trinity.
Yep, neighbors at Trinity. There we go. Real live example. There's also I'm seeing a handful of curacy programs that are starting in different places where they're just trying to bring on someone on staff in their local parish, fund them partially from the parish budget and partially from support. So I'm seeing those kind of crop up in different places like Virginia and a couple dioceses. This isn't reaching the campus directly, but we're seeing that a lot of our bishops and kind of leaders have been dramatically affected by campus ministry. So Archbishop Foley came to faith through Young Life. Bishop Ruck was on InterVarsity staff. Bishop Dad, Bishop Lebhar, son of a bitch, was on Focus staff. But we don't, right now, there's no kind of, at the scale of RUF, you don't see anything that's quite equivalent to an RUF in terms of a provincial campus ministry. There's some strengths and weaknesses to the fact that that's true.
Explain RUF.
Yeah, RUF is Reformed University Fellowship. So it's a Presbyterian campus ministry. So today I want to hold before you three basic kinds of models that I'm seeing as I look that I think will be helpful for us as we refine how we reach the campus and decide which models we're going to go forward. And then I'm also going to talk about two strategies within those models. You'll kind of see how that plays out. But the three models that I'm seeing in campus ministry, the first one is the parachurch model. And many of us are familiar with this. And that is basically someone raised funds as they would raise funds to go to another country to spread the gospel, but they're raising funds to go to campus to spread the gospel. And they're supported by individuals and oftentimes by a couple local churches maybe that they have a connection with. And they're sent to a campus or a number of campuses by them. And they're usually in organizations like Crew or InterVarsity or Navigators. They have a ton of resources and training at their back. Resources in evangelism, resources in multi-ethnicity, resources in justice, all sorts of resources that they have. And the strength is that they're really effective in reaching students. Lots of students come to faith through these ministries. They've spent decades and decades and decades refining their methods, crafting graphics, crafting evangelistic strategies, crafting funding models so that they can reach the campus. Another strength is that the parachurch is really a source of prophetic witness to the church. Because they're ahead in terms of seeing the generations that are coming, they often see trends that are coming down the line for the rest of the church. So the things that campus ministries are doing now are usually things that the church will face in 20 to 30 years. The weaknesses, though, is there's often little interaction between the local parish and the campus ministry, right? We see that the two shall never meet sometimes. And also a weakness is there's often, not always, but often little to zero catechetical formation done in these campus ministries, right? These students know how to tear apart a passage hermeneutically because they know how to do a bit of evangelistic Bible studies, but when it comes to the Trinity, their eyes glaze over. I mean, everybody's does, but especially college students, right, who are new to faith. So that's the parachurch model. Another model that we're seeing is the parish-based model. So in the parish-based model, essentially what's happening there is you have a local parish that is probably close to a college campus, and they are reaching the college campus in the same way that you have a youth group that is reaching the youth. Then you have a college ministry. It's based out of the local parish, maybe run by a lay person or a priest designated for college ministry, maybe does it full-time or part-time. And they are a parish that is reaching as a church the college campus. And the strength of this is that students are active in the life of an intergenerational church, right? It's a powerful thing. The church is a powerful witness to students. And when they're seeing the life of a church played out, they have, all of a sudden, they're adopted and they have all of these grandmas and they have all of these nieces and nephews that are right below them. And all of a sudden, they're brought into the life of a parish. And that is incredibly powerful. And another strength is that they're gaining vision for what their life looks like in faith after college, right? They're seeing what it looks like to live out the faith when they graduate. But the weakness is it's really hard to start a parish-based campus ministry on your own from scratch because most people don't have access to all the training that college parish priest needs to have in order to go to campus. There's usually a lot of ways that you need to navigate with the university in order to be recognized, to do the ministry, and your average pastor won't know how to jump through those hoops in order to reach those things. And you also don't have much guidance in terms of, I have area directors, I have colleagues, I have all sorts of people who have tried all sorts of different things. So I'm surrounded by a community of innovation on InterVarsity staff. And that's harder when you have one priest who's there on his own trying to reach college students. It's not impossible. Everything's possible with God. But it is a weakness. It is a difficulty. And then, so I kind of mentioned the weakness. And the third thing that we're starting to see is pioneering partnerships, what I call pioneering partnerships. So you have the parachurch model, you have the parish-based model. Oh, and I forgot to mention one thing. CCO, where CCO fits, the Coalition for Campus or Christian Outreach fits, they kind of have a unique model, which is replicating parish ministries across lots of different churches. So they've kind of done a unique thing and said the parish ministry model works really well, but you often don't have a lot of resources when you're on your own in a church. So what CCO has done is created an infrastructure to say, we're going to train someone to come in your church, and they'll be connected to this larger parachurch organization, but they'll be in your church. They'll raise some of their own staff, and you'll, as a church staff, pay for them. And from the church coming together with some individual fundraising and outside resources from CCO, all of a sudden you have this campus staff who's in your church but trained by CCO. It's a great model because it kind of in some ways takes the best of both worlds. Hunter's in the back, can you wave your hand, Hunter? Hunter's on staff with CCO, and I made him come because I knew some of you might want to learn from some of the things that he's doing on campus, and maybe get connected with that movement, or have CCO come and start in your parish. So that's the parachurch model and the parish model. And the third thing that I'm really excited to see is what I'm calling pioneering partnerships. And it's funny, I have a dear friend, Nate Beasley, who's with Greenhouse. It's a kind of movement of basically an Anglican mission society that's raising up leaders, planting churches, starting movements, and they've been partnering with Cru, and he's been seeing the exact same things, these three models that I saw. And it was like, wow, we see the exact same thing from a different point of view. But what Nate Beasley's doing and what we're seeing in some other areas is the parachurch partnering with the church to plant churches in new ways. So the parachurch and the church, the old mantra used to be, this is the parachurch, we're not the church. We're here to serve the church on campus, but we're not the church. If you want kind of more formation and discipleship, you need to be involved in the local church. Well, now organizations like Cru and InterVarsity and different denominations and groups of churches are saying, how about we just plant churches together? What would it look like if we had a much closer relationship on campus and actually started to do the work of the church hand in hand? To be 100% a campus ministry resourced by Cru and 100% a church. What would it look like if we really believed we were better together? So you're starting to see these pioneering partnerships between the church and the parachurch happen. There's two kind of factors that have led people to this place. First, the parachurch is re-envisioning what their role is in reaching the college campus. So they've realized we can't raise enough staff and get enough funds to reach all of the college campuses in North America. What we're doing is good, but it is not enough to get everywhere. I remember in one of the plenary sessions doing the same thing over and over again and expecting new results. That's what the parachurch has realized. We can't just try to keep growing our staff, try new funding methods. We need to fundamentally rethink the way that we're helping churches reach the campus for the gospel. So they've started to orient themselves and say, maybe it's time for us to get in the dirt with churches and start to plant churches together. So there's InterVarsity and Cru together. Now it spans a lot of different campus ministries, have started something called Every Campus. And it started just as a prayer movement between Cru and InterVarsity. And they started just praying together and meeting together. CCO is a part of this too. Praying together, meeting together. And finally now they're hoping soon to roll out some actual coaching so that they can coach pastors and lay leaders who want to reach the college campus, because they've just said, we can't just keep doing the same thing, raising staff. It's a great model, but it's not all-encompassing. So how do we start to equip the church to plant churches on campuses? It's exciting. And then the other factor that I'm seeing, particularly in Anglicanism, is we're just open to new kinds of parish models. As we are exposed to the global Anglican Church, who structure themselves and sometimes think of parishes differently, we're just able to rethink what it means to have lay pastors like they do in East Africa. Lay pastors is a popular thing. What does it look like to send lay pastors with campus parachurch ministries in order to plant churches? Who says you have to be ordained to plant churches? And in many of the churches in East Africa, you don't get ordained until you plant a couple churches. That's how you know you're supposed to get ordained. Come see if you can plant 3 churches, and then we'll see if it's right for ordination. So we're kind of taking cues as Anglicans and realize, Onesimus is nodding his head with me. So we're kind of taking cues from the global church and realizing, you know what, you don't necessarily have to have a caller to be a lay pastor. Yeah. What if we sent lay pastors with the parachurch to go plant on the college campus? So you see these 2 factors of the parachurch rethinking what it means to reach the college campus with the church, and the Anglican church in particular rethinking what it means to equip lay people to pastor. And in that meeting point is a beautiful potential for ministry where the parachurch and the church are working together. So it's exciting to see this pioneering partnership. So you have, just to refresh once more, you have the traditional parachurch model, which is good, of the church and the people of the church supporting the campus ministry. You have the parish-based model, and then you have these new pioneering partnerships. All in all, those are the 3 kind of basic things that I'm seeing. I want to talk about 2 different strategies within those models that I'm seeing. The 2 different strategies are basically, which foot do you lead with? Do you lead with the Anglican foot first, or do you lead with the evangelical foot first? And when I say evangelical, when I say Anglican, I'm referring to kind of our charism for Christian formation that comes from our liturgy and all the stuff we have. I mean, just in our service is remarkable formation. We know this, right? We have remarkable strength here. And when I say evangelical, what I'm referring to specifically is an emphasis on disciples making disciples, so discipleship and evangelism, that is kind of broader than Anglicanism. So are you going to lead with the Anglican foot first, or are you going to lead with the evangelical foot first? I see both models, or both strategies happening at the same time. So I want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of both. What happens when you lead with your Anglican foot first? Okay? Where does this work? It can be really crucial in universities that have lots of different campus ministries, evangelical campus ministries. We have, as Anglicans, a special charism and a special way that we form disciples that can be extremely helpful. If you're leading with your Anglican foot first. The weakness here, and the key question that we have to ask is, when was your last conversion or baptism? Because we have cradle to college Anglicans, and I can just speak for myself. There were some conversions happening in my parish, but it wasn't until I got out of my parish and joined in a varsity that I saw all sorts of people coming to faith in my campus ministry. And just be honest, as a cradle Episcopalian, it just wasn't in our ethos. So our formation is a real gift, but we have to ask the question, if we're going to lead with our Anglican foot first, are we seeing conversions and are we seeing baptisms? If we lead with our evangelical foot first, this can be a really powerful and great strategy. One of my friends who's doing this says he's planting college churches on campus, or campus churches on different colleges, and he'll start in the fall with no liturgy whatsoever, and then in the spring he'll start to introduce some liturgy. And his reasoning is, there's so many kids who are kind of floating from an evangelical background, and if you showed up on campus and said, I'm an Anglican campus ministry, they would be like, well, I'm not Anglican, that's not for me. Right? It's not like there's tons and tons of Anglican students coming to college just waiting to find an Anglican campus ministry. So his thought, and this is what parachurches naturally do anyway, is lead with the evangelical foot first. Right? Cast a wide net, and then introduce our Anglican traditions later. And the key questions for campus ministries who lead with the evangelical foot first is how are your students being catechized? So I tell the story of Maya. I want to tell you the story of Maya. Maya came to faith 7 months ago. She came to faith because in the Asian American Student Union, there was a Bible study that was specifically reaching Asian American students. She saw all her friends who knew the Lord for about 5 months, and the gospel was presented to her, and she put her faith in Jesus and decided to follow him. Fast forward to about 4 weeks ago, she is now bringing her friends to Bible studies. She's now bringing her friends to our large group meeting. One of the people that she brings from the Asian Student Union, in the middle of our large group, has an anxiety attack and starts self-harming. Just right there. Maya takes her friend to another room and continues the large group Bible study that we're having, leading her as a new Christian to this non-Christian through a Bible study right away. So powerful, right? This is someone who's brand new to Jesus. But the question that we have to ask for students like Maya, who's being led in a campus ministry that leads with their evangelical foot first, is how are these students being catechized? Right? Because Maya knows how to lead a non-Christian through a Bible study already, just at 6 months of being a Christian. But does she know the creeds? Right? Does she know the Trinity? Does she understand the historic theology that we carry in our tradition? So the question that we have to ask for campus ministries who lead with their evangelical foot first are, how are our students being catechized? And instead of kind of trying to navigate, I really think the theme of this conference fits the theme of what I want to say is, what's best is when these campus ministries are better together. I found that it's better for me as an InterVarsity staff who's in partnership with an Anglican church, just to own the fact that it's not in our DNA so much to do catechetical formation. That's just not who we are. So I've taken it upon myself to partner with a local church, which happens to be an Anglican church, given my background, right? And we've seen that the evangelical kind of nature of the campus ministry, partnered with our students being plugged in to the Anglican church, has brought about a partnership that's really, really beautiful. There's so many different kinds of ways that campus ministries can partner in such a way for both the evangelical and the Anglican. So I don't want to pretend there's a silver bullet or anything like that. But there's so many different kinds of ways where this partnership can happen. But those partnerships have to be in place. And if you're in one, you have to be asking the other question. So what are some next steps? First of all, I'd just say prayer and discernment is key. What is the Lord calling you to do? These models, this is a very American presentation of all the modes that we have and the models and strategies, but Jesus has to direct you, right? So whatever kind of prayerful way that the Lord leads you has to be first. But I would say if you're kind of wanting to build a relationship with a parachurch and you're in a church, just take a campus minister out for lunch and support them at $25 a month and take them out for lunch every month or so. It's incredible, the kind of partnership, if you are just caring for them. Second is, if you're interested in this kind of parish model but don't know where to start, the CCO is a great place either to just do ministry with the CCO directly, or they can kind of give you some pointers. But that's why I brought Hunter here, is if you're wanting to do the parish model in your church, that's what the CCO is here to do. And then for the pioneering partnerships, I put you in touch with Greenhouse, because they're in the middle of working this out in their lab in Chicago right now, and are seeing some great stuff and can hook you up with some resources. So it's not up here. My cell phone's up here. If you want to kind of be in touch with me, I'd be happy to be in touch and point you to different kinds of resources or connect you with different people around the country. But those are the three models that we're seeing in the two strategies. And let me open it up for questions.
Pioneering partnerships, what was the ministry you put with it?
Greenhouse. Based in Chicago. Yeah.
This morning we've heard a lot about the way that the missionaries are reaching the Muslims using Discovery Bible Study.
Yes.
And focusing on that approach, which seems to me to be applicable to any person who would not know the
Right.
word. Have you guys thought about incorporating those methods?
Yeah, I mean, we do something called gigs, which in InterVarsity, which is very similar to Discovery Bible Study. Manuscript Bible Study is like one of the biggest things that I use. That's how I train my students. Different campus ministries approach the Bible in different ways, but yeah.
What does GIG stand for?
Groups investigating God. It's just small group Bible studies that happen with Christians and non.
And actually, that's how InterVarsity we've really reached a lot of how we're reaching fraternities and sororities is actually using a communal discovery method.
Yep.
And then training up and finding those particular leaders, and then letting them and sending them to lead those movements in the fraternity sorority house, which is a natural network.
Yep.
But yeah, at the center of that is the Discovery Bible Studies.
Yep, that's right. Other questions? Yeah.
Peter, do you find reaching out to the college-age students, is there an age group of the mentor or the person interacting with them that is preferable? I mean, my age, I'm early 60s versus,
Right.
Never mind, 39. No, but are they more receptive to interaction with a contemporary as opposed to somebody that's older, or does that really matter?
Yeah, I mean, I just turned 30, and my students are way better at reaching their friends than I am, because automatically, kind of the power dynamic or whatever exists there, and they're just kind of nervous about that interaction. But with that said, I mean, not to be too spiritual, but he equips the called. So if you feel like you're supposed to go, I would say go, and the Lord will probably provide a way. I mean, there may be different methods and strategies that you would employ. Maybe your focus is finding the potentially missional Christians versus going straight for the students who don't consider themselves Christians, but I wouldn't necessarily. So many hands. Yes, Wineskins.
No, you go.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. A question from East Africa.
Yes. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah.
Does the church, the local church here, the leadership, I know your dad is a bishop.
Yes.
Is the church leadership willing to equip and release the lay people into ministry? As you pointed out, I was the chaplain to the Archbishop.
Yes.
When I was a layman, and I got ordained later.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
How is the local church here handling that kind of?
Hunter wants to answer that question as CCO. Yeah, go ahead.
So with the CCO model, I was a parish priest for 5 years before joining with them, and one of the things that we do is we partner with the local church in order to facilitate and help the church be the church on campus. So raising up the leaders who have different gifts and talents, who see opportunities, and releasing them and partnering, facilitating, giving them resources to do that ministry, rather than just paying somebody to do it. So getting the church to do it. So identifying those leaders is a big part of the staff person's job.
Right. I think I would say, Father Onesimus, from my experience, is that some are starting, but we haven't realized how important the laity are in reaching the campus. And I sometimes beat my head up against the wall in frustration that people think you have to be clergy in order to do Anglican campus ministry well. We really need to be sending more laity. So keep speaking to us. Drew in the back, and then Sarah. Yeah.
Just on the age question.
Yeah.
You talk about the difference between you as an official leader trying to reach students versus students reaching each other.
Right.
About the power differential.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily an age differential. That's just to clarify. It's a power thing because you're in a position.
Sure.
More ministry has been done by Like in the church plant that I was a part of in Charleston,
Right.
being invited as a college student into a family for a meal
Sure.
was life changing.
Yeah.
Because they're isolated in a new place, longing to belong.
That's exactly right.